So, Jim, it seems like to me that all the low-hanging fruit like Iraq and Syria and Libya and all these, Ukraine, they've already been picked off. So now, is there any danger that they can go after like the bigger fish?
I mean, like Russia.
Yeah, like Russia or so sorry, you were cutting out there for a bit.
Don't know what happened.
Okay, anyhow, that sounds better. So okay, yeah, that was my, and I just wonder about that. I don't think it's going to happen, but you keep hearing like Russia was such a big friend and a good guy after Glasnost and all that, and now suddenly they're the big bad wolf again. So I just wonder if they would the people. These neocons would be insane enough to launch something against Russia or maybe some other major nation.
Well, look what happens to trading partners with the United States in the last 10 or 15 years. In 1999, we gave China most favored nation status. I mean, there's a lot behind that, a big gold lease and probably something connected to JP Morgan headquarters posted as collateral. A lot of different things involved with that, maybe even an IRS secure fund derivative. But I mean, in '05, I was saying in my newsletter when I was in my first year, China is a trading partner. They're going to move quickly to a trading rival. And then shortly after that, they're going to go direct into trade war and then possibly later into hot war. All right, now you had Russia. We had the Glasnost and the fall of the Soviet Union. Down came the Berlin Wall. I know all that nice, happy stuff. And you had a lot of foreign direct investment in Russia. But you had some devious things going on all the time related to oligarchs. And, following the oligarchs is, quite a study in itself. You got these 20 or 18 different hugely wealthy billionaire Russians, and it's hard to know who the bad guys are and who the good guys. Well, I got an easy formula for you. If they found a home in Ukraine, they're bad guys.
Hmm.
That's what we've got going on right now. So you talked about, did the United States knock off or push aside all the small fish or low hanging fruit? We never really pushed aside Iran, did we? We had
No.
the Geneva Iran talks, and it looks like we're trying to get some détente, and I like the word that the French have, rapprochement. We're trying to heal. We're trying to, get past some of the difficulties. And what I believe is going to happen next is Iran is going to be as important to Russia and the energy trade as Saudi Arabia was to Britain and the US for the energy trade. We're going to see OPEC eclipsed by what I call the natural gas co-op. They've got their own name for it, but it's never going to fly the way they're trying to describe it. They had a meeting just in the last month, I believe, in Qatar, and you're starting to see now the coalition come in. The only missing piece that I think is not there yet is Algeria, which is a huge gas producer. But I believe Israel is going to be part of the natural gas co-op because they've got an enormous new platform called Tamar. It's called the Tamar Floating Back Platform. Tamar, in its floating platform, is making history for technology advances. And they already signed a contract a year ago with Gazprom. They're looking forward to the energy surpluses to feed the Israeli economy. They need foreign surplus currency to keep their economy strong. This is how you keep economies strong. It's not by launching a war and stealing central bank gold like what the United States does on a regular and frequent basis. So we've run out of these low-lying fruit to attack, not to overcome, because we never overcame Iran. We didn't really overcome Iraq. We got out after 10 years. Nation building in Iraq was a joke. And what's happened now in Iraq is that we set up this parliament and set up an energy revenue sharing system that the Iraqis refuse to manage properly. So the Kurds in the Northeast, they're not getting their share of energy output, oil output. So now the Kurds are not sharing it with the home base in Baghdad, the central government. You're going to see before long extreme pressure to create an independent Kurdish state. I'm all for it. I like to see independent states set up if it eliminates the tremendous friction, violence, loss, and ruin of economies. So now we've set up this parliament in Iraq, and it's 2/3 Shiite. Well, gosh, in comes ISIS, another Langley creation that was active in Syria. They're moving south into Iraq. And I don't want to get into all that, but we're getting to the point now where Europe must make a choice. We've been attacking French bank, attacking a Swiss bank.
Oh yeah. Sorry to interrupt. That's a big story with this BNP Paribas. What happened there, and the French, the guy from French Central Bank, Neuer, I think is his name. He openly announced that now they're going to go after the dollar.
They're going to seek alternative methods for running their entire banking system. We're about to lose France. Now, I'd like to point out there's a hidden motive with BNP Paribas that I got a kind of a virtual staff. It's hard to call it that, but we put our minds together and come up with theories and test them and verify them and seek out sources and, try to figure out what's going on over the test of time. And it looks like PNB Paribas might have posted a tremendous amount of treasury bonds in short futures contracts, planning to deliver on them from BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, mainly Russia, China, and India. So the BNP Paribas case might be a treasury dumping exercise that the U.S. got in the way of. So we're starting to see a lot of evidence, and the fallout will be that the French will be more eager to join Germany in setting up more Chinese and Russian alliances. We're getting to the point where we're forcing the hand of the Germans and French. We tried to get the French to stop the Mistral, M-I-S-T-R-A-L. It's a helicopter gunship, like aircraft carrier. It can hold oodles. I don't know the exact number. My guess is can hold maybe 10 or 15 helicopter gunships. The U.S. government tried to get the French to stop that for a Russian contract. And the French said, no, it's under contract. We don't want to pay penalties under contract. And besides, it keeps our economy going. So the French aren't going to be willing for sanctions. They don't want to get their gas cut off anyway from Gazprom. And then the Germans were pleaded. We pleaded to the Germans to cut back, but 3,000 German companies are doing business currently in Russia. They're not going to cut back. They're not going to do sanctions. And they get 40% of their gas from Russia, and mostly Gazprom. And Germany gets 30% of their oil from Russia. They're not going to cut off and have sanctions with Russia. So the U.S. plan to make scorched earth and block the Ukrainian flow of oil for all that Russian income by the nasty Russians. We can't even get the story straight. Russia did not attack Crimea. They merely moved in there to protect a lot of Russians, and then they immediately conducted a referendum. Do you want to join Russia? And 93 or 95% of Crimea say, yeah. Is that an attack? I don't think so. So we get lots and lots of propaganda, and the United States is promising Europe incredibly that we'll supply you oil and gas. Don't get it from bad boys in Russia. And it's a moronic plan that'll never pan out. So Europe is forced to choose between trade with Russia and China or economic ruin with USA.
So, Jim, what you're saying is that this paradigm shift eastward is underway, and now you're saying that this is an unstoppable force, and it is centered on the installation of some type of gold standard. But it also involves the rejection of the U.S. dollar system, which has dominated global finance and trade for some 60, 70 years now.
Yes, I am, and we've seen a lot of different evidence of how the dollar is going away as a primary system. We had as groundwork the yuan swap facilities largely started. I mean, the concept was tested out and proved in Brazil, the Brazil-China yuan swap facility. And now if you get a list of all the nations doing yuan swaps, I think it's something like 18. It includes Australia, New Zealand, Japan, France, Germany, England. God, these are Western major nations. So the groundwork is there. Next comes the Chinese yuan, full convertibility, and then the springing up of the RMB hubs, which is just renminbi trading hubs. You're going to hear RMB a lot. It just means people's money in Chinese. It is the Chinese yuan. RMB is the Chinese yuan. It's not a second currency, as I've heard some very poorly instructed people say. So you're going to see a spring up, like in London and Frankfurt, Germany, of RMB hubs that do two main things. And in past interviews, I focused pretty much on the Chinese yuan-based bonds being traded, like in London and Frankfurt. That refers to, say, Chinese government debt, but it may be also McDonald's in the United States. They want to float some Chinese-denominated bonds. But the RMB hubs are going to do a second thing also. They're going to trade and convert the yuan. They're going to trade it and convert to Swiss francs, convert it to euro, convert it to British pounds, convert it to yen, convert it to Aussie dollar. So the RMB hub is going to be for bond trade and currency translation. You've got a lot of energy trade that's moving toward the yuan and ruble. I mean, gosh, we're telling the Russians we're going to isolate you from the dollar. Well, that's just going to hasten, accelerate even their move toward the yuan and the ruble, and it's going to become stronger as it's used more. And it's going to really stomp on the Londoners and New Yorkers who are playing with the Russian ruble currency right now, doing their usual games. But then later comes, this is going to be like the birth pang. You're going to see gold trade notes. And you're going to have to post gold in order to get credit lines for your letters of credit. I believe the gold trade notes, I've not been told this by The Voice or anybody in the gold community, pardon me, but I believe the gold trade notes are going to be interchangeable with the new yuan gold-backed currency. And then you're going to see the gold central bank for the BRICS and their associate nations come into form. And I believe that's what the BRICS, I'm sorry, we're noticing that the state of Belgium has a huge bulge. I call it the Belgian bulge billboard. Try saying that fast 3 times in a row. The Belgian bulge billboard is showing almost $400 billion worth of treasury bonds. I believe that is toward the sourcing of gold for the BRICS central bank. So you can point to all these different events and say, we are seeing the breakdown. We are seeing the treasury dumping. You're just not getting news items out of the U.S. mainstream press and financial press and Bloomberg. They don't talk this way. They don't say PNB Paribas is being stomped on by the Attorney General office at the Department of Treasury in the U.S. government. PNB Paribas stomped on because they're trying to dump treasury bonds and facilitate it for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. They don't talk that way. They're not going to tell you the pathogenesis toward the death of the dollar. They don't want it to become a bandwagon. They don't want the American citizens to buy gold. They're not going to make gold illegal. They're just going to make it extremely difficult to secure and make you feel like a criminal when you're buying it. My father has actually told me, I don't want to buy gold, Jim. From all that I read about it and all the obstacles and some of the rules, it looks like the U.S. government will think that I'm kind of a criminal for buying it. Well, that's exactly what they want people to think. And now Oklahoma has just voted to make gold, not so much legal tender, but available for settling debts. You want to buy a house? You can use gold. Okay, that's a big, big step. You're having a number of U.S. states working toward gold as legal tender. The problem in the United States and the global economy is that legal tender has been declared to be the dollar, which is not money. I know that sounds strange, but if you want definition of money, it has to do with being fungible, which means you can exchange one for another. And now I'm learning, for instance, that older 2008 dollars are valued differently from newer 2009 dollars. We
What do
might,
you mean? What do you mean dollars? Like, do you mean like Federal Reserve notes are valued
yes,
differently?
yes, Federal Reserve notes. I'm not saying they're valued differently. I'm saying that they're legally regarded differently. They have different legal standing. So think of it as pre-QE dollars being worth more than QE dollars. And if we get a forced conversion of all your dollars for a new Republic dollar, I don't have this confirmed. I'm just thinking, well, it's only natural. You might get a bigger devaluation of the newer dollars. So they're,
So if you have money in your mattress, you're better to go with the older bills than the new ones.
yes, and people like the newer bills because they're crispier and less mold on them.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. All right. So the dollar is not fungible because they're not all the same. And the dollar, okay, to be real money, another definition is that it's portable. You need to be able to move it across borders, move it across state lines, and have it recognized. All right. Well, there's some restrictions on dollar movement now, and it's not so easily portable. It must stand over time. Gold will stand over time. You bury a gold treasure in a lake or ocean, or like a shipwreck even, and you recover the gold. Well, it really didn't change. 30 years passed or 180 years passed. It didn't change. You can't do that with a dollar. I've seen some, 70-year-old dollars, and they almost crumble in your hand. So the last definition of money is that you can't easily forge it. And, what are they doing in QE but printing $80 billion a month? I don't buy their $40 and $50 billion a month figure with tapering. No, they're lying better. And the Belgian bulge makes them liars. I don't think that's all the Fed hiding. I call it the Belgian hidey hole for hiding QE so that the US can claim that they're not printing as much money covering debt. No, it's the European investors. Yeah, right. So the dollar does not satisfy the criteria for money. And that's why the US is deteriorating so badly in its financial system and economy. Its legal tender is not money. It is debt. We got debt-denominated coupons like a $20 bill. Debt-denominated coupons. That is what our money is now, and it's not true money. It's legal tender. So we're going to have to change what our money system is to get back on the gold standard, and then our legal tender will be money. But we're going to have to go through some severe devaluations. If you get a 30% devaluation of the dollar on forced conversion with, say, the new Republic dollar, 30% devaluation means instantly 43% rise in the cost of an import. That's how you're going to get some astonishing price inflation in the United States. And if you want to know, is there any place that it's happening now that I could watch? Well, yeah, Venezuela. They had a 75%, pardon me, devaluation in 2 steps in 2012 and 13. 75%. So what's 25 over 100? That's 1 in 4. So they had 4 over 1. That's 300%. They had a 300% increase in their import price inflation suddenly. Well, Chavez had kept their currency locked in a band, forcing true currency exchange into the streets and black markets. They had a 2-tier conversion for the Venezuelan bolivar currency, one on the street, black market, and one in the banks. So very little money ever exchanged in the banks. It all went to the street. So now they're having an acceleration of making that right, bring it into balance. So what happens? They're exporting their beans and rice in order to obtain foreign currency. And there's a shortage of beans and rice in Venezuela. Look it up.
No, I totally believe that. It's yeah, absolutely.
So this is what's coming to the U.S. Severe price inflation, shortages, and violence, I believe, at the major supply centers of food, fuel, and cash at the ATM machines. That's what's coming, Desh. And it's not pretty, but you know, when you break the gold standard and you allow a lot of fraud and you falsify statistics in markets, you have a lot of misallocation, you have a lot of asset loss, and this is how you fall into the third world.
So these American corporations, they will not be able to offer dollar-denominated letters of credit anymore for all this huge, stuff, foreign-built stuff, especially from China, that's coming into Walmart and all these places now. So they'll also have to have some kind of gold-backed trade notes in order to purchase these items, I would imagine then.
Well, we have an intermediate step, and we're starting to see it in a big way. We've got a 300% growth in just the last couple of years in American corporations using Chinese currency to settle the import bills. Just think that, for instance, Walmart, they're importing a lot from China. They're not paying in dollars anymore. They're paying in yuan. They're paying in RMB. So RMB settlement is the new phenomenon for American companies. You want to have this foreign dependence on import supply? Well, fine. Eventually, you're going to lose the dollar in usage for that settlement. And then,
so the inflation is obvious then, because as this gold-backed yuan comes in, then it'll take more and more dollars to buy that yuan to settle this trade.
Right, because when you get the gold-backed yuan, it's going to go up. I don't know exactly, but I heard that there is a planned 30% jump in the yuan versus dollar coming before long. I mean, I heard this back in February, and mid-February was a date, and now mid-July is a big date on the wall, and nothing much happened in mid-February except Ukraine. So when we were told about a big reset that was supposed to happen in mid-February that didn't happen, did it not happen because Ukraine was on the agenda list? So now if we don't have something happen in July, what are we going to get instead? I don't know. But I think before long, we're going to see China and Russia announce that all Chinese exports and all Russian exports are going to be done in either ruble or yuan, and the Russians are going to be eager to accept yuan. They might tell European gas customers, pay in yuan, because we're going to start seeing joined at the hip the Russian ruble and the Chinese yuan, and then comes the gold-backed ruble and the gold-backed yuan.
Seems like to me that these supermarkets are going to be moving eastwards into Russia if they have all these yuans to spend in China. You know, that you might see these big malls that are being deserted in America being built in Russia.
Well, they're going to be quite a bit of foreign direct investment in Russia, and already the Persian Gulf nations have pledged some support for infrastructure and foreign direct investment. The Qataris in the Persian Gulf, that's Qatar. Qatar just pledged $3 billion, not for humanitarian aid in Russia, but for structural building, infrastructure building, like bridges and roads and warehouses and railroads, whatever. The Russians are very good with railroads. There are quite a few railroads, and they're pretty much all connected with Germany. More infrastructure with Germany. So Germans are going to make their flip really soon. I've been told that the decisions have already been made for Germany to embrace Russia and China with the Eurasian trade zone. And Frankfurt will become a huge RMB trading hub, the RMB trading hub for bonds and investment banking and RMB currency conversion. So I'm already told that the Germans have made the decision. So what we're seeing now is the politicians and bankers acting like tails, and they're going to be following the dog. Merkel has already been told that you're going to be out of a job soon, even though you're just reelected, because she's on the wrong team. She's on the US, EU, NATO team. She's actually trying to get a job switch to United Nations General Secretary. She's already trying that, and her big liability is she doesn't speak English. And my joke is, well, if she speaks African, she'll do fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, but unfortunately, there's no one African nation. There are about, what, 752? You know, that's a bad joke, but it really is the case. There are a tremendous number of languages spoken in Africa, and it's very difficult to get unity there, and trade deals and cooperation and literacy, and it's very, very difficult. But we're about to see Germany and France both flip east. And I
So
think
then that will leave only the UK in the European sector that will be allied with the US still.
yeah, and you know what will then happen to all the pigs nations? We got Portugal, Ireland, Italy, Greece, Spain. What will happen to them? I think they're going to twist in the wind because they're not going to be part of the new German Nordic euro that's going to be gold backed. You know, some say, well, that's been my forecast for a long time. It's just not correct. No, it's just late in coming. We're going to see a string of new gold-backed currencies. It'll be the Russian ruble, the Chinese yuan, the German Nordic euro. I think we're going to see a Gulf dinar coming out of the Persian Gulf. They don't like that name anymore. The Gulf region of Saudi Arabia and the Emirates and Iran. I think Iran is going to back a Gulf dinar. Iran will back that. The United States is going to come up with its gold-backed republic dollar, but it's going to be challenged right away and be discovered as not having any gold behind it at all. So we're going to continue our fraud. And I think we're going to suffer devaluation after devaluation after devaluation. First one will be automatic, but the following ones will be when the gold is proved not part of the new supposedly gold-backed American Republic dollar. So strange times are coming. I really think that the pivot nations of Germany and Turkey and Japan are extremely important. Saudi Arabia, they've already flipped. You can't call Saudi Arabia a nation about to flip eastward. It already did. Take a look at their agenda items for their ministers. They're meeting with the Chinese, and when they're not meeting with the Chinese, they're meeting with the Russians. And when Obama came to town, they told him to get lost in 20 minutes. So that's already evidence of turning east. I'm looking forward to when Germany comes in and says, we're not going to play your game. And I had listed 3 reasons why the Germans are going to back out. They want their energy supply. They don't like what's going on with the European Central Bank. And there's another one I just can't think of right now. But oh yeah, the U.S. government espionage with National Security Agency. So for energy supply, NSA eavesdropping, and bond monetization abuses by the Draghi Euro Central Bank, I think the Germans are setting up the case for turning formally into Russian and Chinese arms. And when that happens, there's going to be a lot of moaning and crying in the United States. And there's going to be calling, I believe, for somebody's head in the U.S. government. And I think that is when we're going to start to see impeachment proceedings.
Jim, before I let you go, I have to ask you this. Now, given all that is going on here that we have spoken about, what is the danger or what is the probability of something like a bigger 9/11 that both Obama and Dick Cheney and a lot of these guys are now talking about, these nukes going off in Manhattan and Washington and all that? What do you think? So for all these banksters to cover up all their fraud and not be strung up from the light post, do you think that is a real danger?
No, I really don't. And as a little preface to this answer, I'd like to point out to listeners that the U.S. government leaders right now have a side project that's really quite interesting. They're trying to minimize the legal consequences and penalties for treason.
Oh, they are?
Yes, they are. And I think it's because they're expecting to be charged with treason. Now, there's an old rule of thumb when it comes to war that anything fully previewed never happens. Notice that we had lots of warnings of nuclear attacks with Iran. They never happened. We had warnings of attacks in South Carolina. That didn't happen, but look closely over to what happened in Bermuda, and you might see something that was detonated deep in the ocean. So then you had some purges in the U.S. military and the Pentagon of people who didn't cooperate, perhaps. So we've got a very big division inside the Pentagon, inside the U.S. military. I don't want to get into a lot of other really unusual things that are going on because I try to stick with my knitting of finance, economics, currencies, banking, and gold. But I'm not sure you're going to see any nuclear detonations anywhere. I don't think any nation wants the mutual destruction, but I'm not sure their devices work anymore. I'll just leave it at that.
No, good enough, Jim. I'm glad that that you are you always have that ability to analyze things in a more rational manner than a lot of the sky is falling crowd that's out there. So it's good to hear that, and I would now that you mentioned now that you explain it in that manner, I would tend to agree with you. And the best thing that I suppose that is actually happening for the American people and possibly for the world is that there is actually a division in the ranks of the top leadership in the U.S. itself. So hopefully there are, people with some clout that are saner in their abilities that will be able to at least, delay some of this madness that we have witnessed in the past.
I hope so, and I'd like to point out that the division in the U.S. government has two different types of divisions. One is those loyal to the Constitution, the people, rights, liberty, good for the nation, versus the loyalists to the syndicate, which follow the orders for the narcotics, the distribution, abuse of NATO bases, the funding of Wall Street with narcotics money and laundering. The second big division that's going on in the United States government is between the security agencies. On the good side, you've got defense intelligence and a lot of other related security type functions. And on the bad side, I call them bad because that's just my opinion, the side that believes in violence and murder and sustaining the fascism. The bad side is the National Security Agency, the FBI, the Coast Guard, Homeland Security. So it's really now the Pentagon versus NSA. And I don't know how this is going to turn out, but I'd like to see some of the NSA people charged with treason. And we got these reports of Snowden and what's the other guy, Grunwald or something?
Right.
They're setting rumors out that there are going to be some rather staggering revelations in the next couple months regarding the big stolen NSA files. And I say this could get very interesting because the more information that comes out, the more likely it is that bad people will start going into hiding or maybe escaping to Paraguay like they did in the 40s. I'm hoping that if a huge dumping of information comes out, that it's organized in a relational database sort of way. Like you want to read all the 1,800 documents related to U.S. government activity and U.S. security agency activity and activity from a certain nation on the southeast corner of the Mediterranean. Well, we got these 1,800 documents, and you can find them all over here under certain markings. You want to find your 9/11 activity, nuclear background and device for the several thousand that were deployed on the World Trade Center, micro nuclear devices. Well, search with this marking because we got about 400 documents related to that. For narcotics in Afghanistan and planning for that, we got a different marking for that. I want these things to be well organized when they're revealed, so it's not like you got a dumping on your lawn and you got to sift through it to find the real damning evidence. I think that some real experts have spent a full year organizing the Snowden files. And I think it was Putin who just a few months ago said we're going to start releasing some of the information so that people can know what's going on in the world. I say bring it on. I'd like to see some real good light shined on the United States government and their activities with the security groups, because I don't think they're acting in our best interest. I think they're acting in the interest of the castle dwellers and the elite who want to impose global fascism and wreck our economies first.
Who in turn work for the Prince of Darkness, but that's another subject. Now, this what is required, Jim, is for the media, the mainstream media, to also have a split where they actually start releasing some of this information, and I think there is some light at the end of the tunnel in that regards. For instance, Joan Rivers came out just the other day and announced to the whole world that President Obama is gay and that Michelle Obama is a transvestite. So that's something I don't think we would have heard anywhere reported in the media, or a person like, her stature would be able to say that unless somebody somewhere is supporting her and, allowing this information to come out. So that I think is a good thing that's happening, and we hope that more of the media starts to report real information rather than the garbage that they feed us day after day.
Yeah, I think you're probably correct. I'd like to know who the supporters are of good, solid, verifiable information. I don't know. I think I heard that there's a real big, major split in Hollywood right now. It's the Satanists versus the old line. You see it all over the place in performances by Madonna and Katy Perry and a few others. They have their satanic symbols, and the naive public says, "Oh, isn't that cute? Broomsticks running around on stage. Isn't that cute? And the triangle with an eye on the wall. Isn't that cute? I think I'll make a shirt like that." They don't even understand often what these symbols are. They're satanic symbols. And we got one on the back side of the $1 bill in the United States.
Of course.
And the bricks, the 13 bricks on the back side of the dollar bill, the $1 bill, the 13 bricks signify the 13 families from the Masons in the black nobility. Black nobility means in Satan's service. So many of the owners of the Federal Reserve are Satanists, and Americans need to wake up. I mean, there's so much going on under your noses, and you can ignore it a lot if you wish, but it'll come knocking at your door in the form of confiscated bank accounts, in the form of maybe making your life very difficult if you bought a lot of gold. Maybe they'll just confiscate your pension fund and roll it into U.S. Treasuries under government management. It's not going to be possible to hide from this for much longer. It's all over the place. They're coming. They're coming. The jackboots are coming. And it's a tragedy.
Undoubtedly, it is a tragedy, and it's a tragedy of, gigantic proportions. It's not just a small one. And so true, it is going to impact, I believe, the nation of the U.S. more than any other peoples in the world, especially because they've been used to such a good, comfortable lifestyle, and, having walking into the store and having a choice of all these goodies to buy, and, life of comfort and luxury. So those days, I believe, are behind us now, and it's time for people to wake up. And I thank you, Jim, because you are one of the great voices out there that is constantly sounding the alarm. You're the watchman on the wall, and for that I am thankful, and I'm grateful for our friendship, and also for the great quality of the information that you bring us. So before we wrap up here, could you go ahead and tell the listeners about your great website and your subscription service that you offer that provides better information about economics and geopolitics than any other source that I know of.
Okay, the website is www.goldenjackass.com. No hyphens or underscores, just goldenjackass.com. You'll find a lot of free material. It's interviews like this and public articles. I just had a public article posted a few days ago, 2 or 3 days ago, on hidden factors for systemic failure. There's a lot going on that's hidden, and we talked about some of it today. But there's a lot of free material on my website. I used to post work from other people, but I just got bogged down with my own work so much I stopped doing that in about '06. But I have one newsletter that includes 2 reports each month. It's the Hat Trick Letter, and the reports are the Global Money War Report. It's for high-level issues and battles. And then there's the Golden Currency Report for ground-level battles and skirmishes. And I don't want to get into a lot of detail, but one's kind of a macro look, one's kind of a micro look, one's kind of a global big picture, one's kind of a national look in various countries. And they complement each other very well. Sometimes it's a tough call on, well, does this belong in the Money War Report or the Gold Report? And it doesn't really matter which one. It ends up in the one that's got the available space, because it's very hard to come up with a cogent report for each that's of a fixed length. I do not limit myself on length. It's like I produce 2 little magazines each month that are titled correctly, appropriately. And, just sign up for the newsletter after reading some free material. Sign up for the newsletter and you will not be disappointed. I had yet another subscriber who came to Costa Rica and visited me. Well, he had his own purpose, but he said, well, I'm in town. Let me take you out for dinner. So he did. And he said to me, Jim, I've only been a subscriber for a week. And what I have seen, even after knowing of your work for almost 3 years, I've read your public articles, I've listened to some of your interviews. I had no idea that your newsletter was so well done and had so much rich information. It was organized in a way that I could really just focus on currencies or gold, or focus on central banks and the big banks. It's organized and it's got a lot of arguments in there, a lot of information. It ties together well. I wish I had signed up a year earlier. Okay, I hear that once in a while, and it's nice to hear. So goldenjackass.com, take a look, read around, sign up. You won't be disappointed.
Before we go, something else came into my mind, and I want to ask you about that. Do you think something big is going on with J.P. Morgan with this Jamie Dimon cancer story?
It's a false story. 2 days ago, I got an email from one of my clients. Now, that's one of the beauty of having 2,600 clients from 77 countries. I get a lot of emails out of nowhere, left field. This woman wrote me and said, Jim, I want you to know the story came out today. Jamie Dimon has throat cancer and he's going to resign. It's a false, phony story. And the reason I know that is that I have a friend who's been in J.P. Morgan, who works in New York and has been there for 18 years. And he let it be known to me that it's a false story. Jamie Dimon is running scared and wants to get out.
So he wants to abandon ship before it sinks.
Well, that or leave the country before he's charged with fraud. Okay. I mean, he might be facing 20 years in prison if some of all what he does is determined. And did he give any murder orders? I'm not saying he did, but I'm asking the question. We got a number of J.P. Morgan mid-level bankers being murdered. Did he give any orders? Is there any evidence? Could the NSA produce some telephone files? I don't know, but I expect we're going to hear before long that he's seeking treatment in a foreign country.
Right. Like Switzerland, I guess. Yeah, okay.
Now, I've got no additional information on that. All she said was absolutely no reference at all with any of his friends to throat cancer or any other cancer, but they have noticed that he is increasingly worried and scared.
You know, that's the MO that these high level operatives, they usually leave the post before something major goes down, like Bernanke taking off now and leaving Janet Yellen, and now J.P. Morgan taking off. You know, who knows? Like, we might have some of the Citibank and Goldman Sachs, top brass, what's his name, Blankfein, etc., take off as well. And to me, that would be a sign that there is something, there's a major storm brewing on the horizon, and that's why these guys are leaving. But that's just speculation, so we'll wait and see.
Well, here's the biggest guy who left his post before the ship sank, Alan Greenspan. He knew what was coming. He knew that the bonds were going to break. He knew the subprime was going to break. He knew we'd have to go to 0%. He knew we'd have to go to QE. He didn't want to preside over that. So now he's just saying, well, it all happened under Bernanke, and he did a great job. And Greenspan was knighted by the Queen. Why was he knighted by the Queen? Because he was paid by the Queen.
Right. He was in Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Whatever. Right. These guys are not working for the best interest of the country. They're taking an oath to support the Constitution. And what they're doing is they're supporting the narcotics syndicate, the banking syndicate, the pharmaceutical syndicate that spreads viruses through vaccines, the news network syndicate, the military contractor syndicate. That's all grouped together. And there's a large growing body in the Pentagon that does not like seeing what's going on. And what I'm hearing is when the Pentagon regulars from the military in Iraq encounter the Langley security agency mercenaries on the battlefield, that's going to be the end of the game. And we're going to start seeing impeachment proceedings. So let's see if that happens. I don't know. I don't have a...
Well, that's big news if it does, Jim, and let's hope that it does. And
but you need to keep in mind there are two types of U.S. military.
Sure.
One is Pentagon, paid by the government debt. We don't pay our own debts anymore. You can't say that the taxpayers are supporting that. No, the QE printing press is supporting the U.S. military now. And the other side is the narcotics military. And they operate after 10 p.m. And, George Bush Sr. is their king.
Excellent, excellent. On that note, Jim, my friend, it's been a pleasure as always. And I will let you go now so you can get ready for the big game. And I will definitely, as always, look forward to talking to you again in the near future. And I'm sure when we talk another, few weeks or a month or two from now, that much will have happened. And it's always very, very informative for me and the listeners because of the number of views you get. You are a well-respected man in this field, and I'm sure glad that we are able to have you on as a guest.
Well, it's my pleasure. We'll do this again sometime.
Okay, take care, Jim.
My best to you all.
in a cloud. He laid him in his own tomb, put a boulder at his mouth. The Jews said a God nearby, so they wouldn't steal him away. Judas was the Son of God. He died to set the captives free. Judas was the Son of God. Jesus of Galilee. Judas was the Son of God. He died to set the captives free. Jesus rose from the grave. The stone was rolled away. He walked with his disciples. He showed them the way. He rose up to conquer death, give us victory. Well, true, true.